Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Well, I don't know what to tell you guys, but Patty's not here today. This is Ben Cominos. You guys, some of you regular listeners of the program may remember me. I'm a recurring guest with Patti every other Tuesday. I'm the guy from Outside the Box on WHBY with some out there opinions that tends to get a little heated and maybe yell a little bit about billionaires. And I promise you that's what we're going to be doing again today. Patty's out today. She'll be back tomorrow. I will actually be co-hosting the program with her. Looking forward to seeing her. It's been since our little chat down at Minocqua in Madison. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully you guys came prepared to engage in a little bit of political discourse with me here today. These phone lines are open the entire show, 773-763-9278. So please do take advantage of those. I would love to chat with you guys. A little bit about me before we even get into it. I'm a Pittsburgh transplant. You may be familiar with that. I moved up to Appleton just about 2.5 years ago, specifically for the program that I'm working. I am absolutely a lefty. I am incredibly frustrated with what the Democratic Party has done to us, and I'm even more frustrated about what the next 4 years are going to bring. That is what we're going to be talking about today. Shortcomings, the difference between me and a lot of other talk radio. We will lament the bad things that are going to happen, and we will stick together through everything that is happening. But it is important to remember that we need to look to 2028 and beyond as opposed to backwards to 2024. How can we prevent something like this from happening again? And that is the crux of what I like to bring. If you guys want to chime in with your thoughts on it, you are always welcome to do so. So please do take advantage of that. We've got a number of topics to get into here today that I would like to cover. First and foremost, my attitude towards the way politics works in this hyper information sensitive period that we are in. It seems like so many people tend to gravitate towards the same stories, right? Turn on CNN, turn on MSNBC, turn on Fox. I promise you, you are going to find a TV station talking about Pam Bondi or Pete Hegseth or whatever lunatic is being proposed for Donald Trump's cabinet this time around. That is not what I want to talk about. I have my thoughts about them, but you want me to be real? Pete Hegseth is probably going to do military-industrial complex stuff the same way as every other defense secretary does it. Pam Bondi is going to be blindly in support of the Republicans, and if she weren't the one that got the role, someone else is going to do it. I feel like it is a circular conversation to have. What I want to focus on is the few good things that were taking place during the Joe Biden administration and highlight how those might be taken away. And we will start with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau after, of course, we take a call already. I absolutely love it. Again, please keep them rolling, guys. I'll get you on as quickly as I can. Jim, out in Chicago, what do you have for us?
I was going to say, as long as everybody on Earth is making predictions, are the California psychics still, do they get burned out there in California? They should be doing great business. I wonder how they're doing. But yeah,
I get it.
But everybody's got a crystal ball out, which is insane. But I was going to say is, when I watched the 2015 Republican presidential debate, remember they had the kids they had two tiers, one for the children's table and one for the adults. And Trump came out of that as the winner, and I thought, what a group of people that couldn't get elected in a million years. And somehow Trump saved the Republican Party.
Yeah, he did.
He saved them from, saved them from absolute disaster. The point is now, though, he is hitting 80. And I don't think that, as long as we're going to predict things, I don't think that his two sons, he's not like a Bush kind of a Republican where they had a dynasty there. But who knows?
Don't jinx
But
it. Yeah, let enough time go by, and I have a feeling, and not Eric, he's pretty stupid, but Don Jr. might end up. I'm watching the moves he's making online. You can tell he's trying to position himself that way. Whether or not he can pull it off is another question entirely. It'd be like, is Michael Jordan's son any good at basketball? Probably not, but once you have that name recognition, it can get you pretty far. I'm hopeful you're right, but it could happen. Don't rule anything out. If there's one thing I've learned the last 8 years, you shouldn't be rolling anything out as a possible option here.
Well, no kidding. I mean, nobody can predict what's going to happen, but all I can say is that it's just it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. That's what it is. It's a mess. We got a mess on our hands.
That's an understatement, Jim, and I appreciate. Yeah, I appreciate your call and your insight there. Definitely a lot of validity. One thing I do want to highlight before we go any further, and I think this is an important message. If you learn nothing from me today, I don't want us to go down the path of treating Donald Trump much differently than any other Republican. And I think that's an important point to hammer home, because in 2028, barring some kind of I'm not leaving the White House, which I personally don't think is going to happen, barring something like that, though, this is it for that guy. Nikki Haley would have done 95% of what Donald Trump is going to try and pull off. And the further down this demonization path we go, the harder it's going to be that highlight that J.D. Vance or Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley or any of these Trump-light Republicans are somehow a better option. Always remember, Nikki Haley was signing bombs in Israel saying finish them before they were going to get dropped in Gaza. That is not hinged behavior. That is unhinged behavior coming from the alleged adult in the room in the Republican race. So, yes, Donald Trump is absolutely going to be a trash president, and we will be covering the ways in which that is the case. But please understand that it is not the end-all, be-all either. We need to have a bigger idea of how to move forward away from this. Objectively, bad things are going to happen to our wallets. It's going to impact everybody. How do we capitalize on this? Case in point. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau on Elon Musk's list, on Vivek Ramaswamy's list, on Donald Trump's list. They want to get rid of it. A little bit of background before we get into this. I had some issues with my credit score a couple years ago. I needed to fix it, and I reached out to a law firm that alleged to help you fix it. Turns out, no, it didn't. It was several $100s down the drain. I received a check last month for $565, actually more than what I paid the law firm because of a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau lawsuit. The list goes on and on. They are currently embroiled in a lawsuit right now. This is all alleged at this point with Capital One Bank stealing $2 billion worth of interest rates from their customers. If you robbed the bank for $20, it would be all over the news. These guys allegedly took $2 billion from all their customers. You're barely hearing a peep about it right now. And that's my point. This is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is what Republicans want to eliminate. This is directly from the lawsuit. This is how they advertise themselves, allegedly, Capital Bank. This isn't alleged, though. This is directly from the website. Your money will earn you much more than it would in an average savings or money market account. What's the catch? There is none. There's nothing for you to do. Just sit back and enjoy your extra interest. Turns out that was one lie after another lie after another lie, and this agency is cracking down on what they are trying to do. And I say all of this to highlight for you that whether you are Republican or Democrat, no one's on the side of Capital One in that scenario. No one's on the side of the law firm that was jerking me around pretending like they were going to help me set myself up financially. Nobody voted for a president based on those companies being allowed to do so. Or if they do exist, that's who the 1% is. And I hate to break it to them, there's 99% of us. So we absolutely can beat you if that's the case. These are the points that we have to drive home surrounding this guy. The abortion thing, and we're going to be talking later on in the program. Gen Z has been polled and interviewed. our understanding of why people are showing up to the polls is very backwards right now. Abortion is not as high up on that list as it once was. Immigration for lefties is not as high as it once was. There are issues that we need to come to grips with here and weaponize those against the right wing. For every time they try to tell you there's someone on welfare taking your tax dollars, we highlight a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's trying to do the same thing. What are we talking about here? This is what brings people together. That's what my show Outside the Box is all about. You've heard me talk about it with Patty. I have MAGA people that call my show. They think we're best buds, and I enjoy talking with them as well. Sometimes they're lost, but you know what? They recognize that problems exist, the same problems that you and I recognize exist. They just aim their animosity at poor people and minorities because they're confused, and no slight to anybody's education level, but not as educated as a lot of other people are. That's all that's happening here. But we need to find a way to work together to circumvent these messages that are keeping us divided. And it's stories like this Capital One credit lawsuit that would do so. And if you want my perfect opinion, I double as a media critic. That is why it doesn't get talked about in the mainstream, because we would come together around it. When's the last time you heard Luigi Mangione's name? Exactly, because right-wingers and left-wingers, not advocating what he did, but I also acknowledge that there were people that understood why it happened, Republicans and Democrats. It's time to utilize these strengths against the Republican Party, instead of allowing them the ability to weaponize their own moronic decisions against us. We're about to deal with another bout of trickle-down economics. This is going to be my fourth bout of trickle-down economics, and in my state of Wisconsin, our state-level GOP is trying to push another bout of tax cuts down our throats. There is not a single example of trickle-down working, ever. So instead of attacking this through the traditional messaging that we use, it's time to open our minds and think of new ways to message this to bring people on board that want to be on board. They want to. It's just a matter of providing another option. I'm going to try really hard for these 2 hours to not beat a dead horse surrounding the Biden administration and the Harris campaign. But that is part of the problem. When you don't offer a viable solution, wait until you hear the numbers throughout this show. People are not becoming more right-wing. They are not buying into conservative ideology. They were just fed up with what was being offered. Not everyone's going to agree with that, but that is what happened. We got more people lining up here. Let's go with John, Lady B. Hello, you're on the air.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can. What's up?
Okay. Hi. I don't know if you caught President Biden's speech yesterday.
I did.
You did? Did you hear him talk about the tech industrial complex?
I did.
You know, the thing about it is I'm an objective person, you know.
I hear you.
I voted Democratic my whole life. But I did not vote for Miss Harris, and I didn't vote for Trump either.
Yeah.
So I won't say who I voted for, but because I cannot support anybody that the propaganda about supporting the military-industrial complex on the Democratic side.
Yep.
I mean, the thing about it is the Democrats are just as guilty as the Republicans, and, you know, we progressives have got to call it for what it is.
I love it, John. Keep going. Keep going. I am too. Keep going.
Well, the thing about it is, you know, don't tell me that Russia's getting ready to invade Europe when back in 2014, Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, was pumping weapons in the Ukraine. And the Russians, you know, being invaded World War I, World War II, and Napoleonic years, they freak out when they see stuff like that on their borders. We would too if we saw, you know, weapons piling up in Cuba or in Mexico. You know, we'd freak out too. So they did. And but the bottom line is that you mention anything against this administration's foreign policy and sending weapons all over the place, and man, you are shut down. They do not want to hear dissenting voices, and that is not as a progressive, I'm not going to live that way, and I'll be damned if anybody's going to tell me how to think.
I'll tell you what, John. I was 13 years old. I was 10 days away from turning 14 when 9/11 happened, and the reason I identify with the left is because they were so staunchly anti-war when that happened, and I'm seeing the same talking points. Remember when they told us we had to occupy Afghanistan because it was in the name of preserving democracy? All Democrats knew that was a line. We all knew it was a line, and then 15 years later, they're like, "Oh, we have to help Ukraine because we have to defend democracy." The same people that were so quickly to call out the propaganda, and I'm not even just talking about the elected officials. The voters followed the same path. And it left people without an option. And one other point to add on to where you started, I addressed Joe Biden's farewell speech in my show earlier this morning, and I called it Dollar Store Bernie Sanders. His talking points about the tech industrial complex is what Bernie was saying in 2009, and liberals were telling him to shut up. And now all of a sudden it's the conventional wisdom of the Democratic Party, now that they don't have the House, they don't have the Senate, they don't have the White House, and they don't have the Supreme Court. Now they're willing to highlight the real issues. I'm not falling for it.
I got you. I hear you loud and clear, and I'm a Bernie supporter. And the bottom line is, you heard this young man who was a mass shooting survivor who's now becoming very political. I can't think of his name offhand.
David Hogg.
Yes, and his comment is, the Democratic Party's listening to all these multimillionaire consultants, and they're basically telling him to sit down and shut up because we know what we're doing. I mean, this guy's just trying to save the kids' lives going to school, for crying out loud.
Oh, tell me about it.
And so this is the thing. The Democratic Party's got to get back to this is Bernie talking too. Get back to the working people. Get back to the people and their views and their concerns. Hey, listen. Last thing. Not only this war stuff, but I'm a son of an immigrant, and I'm proud of that.
Sure.
And I have no problem with immigration either. The problem I have is you can't have unlimited immigration because, listen, I talk to people that live in the suburbs. People moved out to the suburbs back in the Chicagoland area back in the 70s and 80s, and actually before that, but mostly 70s, 80s, and it kept going in the 90s and 2000s. But I heard some complaints lately from people that live out there. It's like, it's getting crowded. It's getting congested. I'm seeing these beautiful cornfields going into asphalt and concrete. And so, immigration is great, because now you've got more houses. You need more houses. You need more roads. You need more stores. Hey, it's great for the economy. But what about our quality of life?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that.
Hey, John.
So anyway,
it's a lot of great points you bring up there. I could talk to you all day. We got the phone lines backing up, and I definitely have to get out to break, so I got to let you go there. But I appreciate the call, man.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too,
Thank
man.
you.
Take it easy. I see we got texts.
Bye-bye.
I see we got calls. We'll do all that. But Lady B is already, I promise you, she's not happy with how late we are. So we're going to go to break first, and we'll handle that on the other side. So stick with us, guys. It's Driving Home with Patti Vasquez with Ben Cominos. We'll be back.
You know that you can listen to Chicago's Progressive Talk on WCPT AM 820. Stream us live at WCPT820.com and on the TuneIn Radio app. Or you can ask Alexa, Siri, or Google to play WCPT from TuneIn. But now you have another option. We're simulcasting our programming overnights. 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on WSBC AM 1240 for a clearer reception in and around the city. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. And now overnights on WSBC 1240 AM, where facts matter.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
There's so much that goes on behind closed doors.
On WCPT 820.
And we're back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez with Ben Cominos here on WCPT. Before we get into it, I do want to let you guys know that tomorrow on Chew's Views, Richard Chew will be joined by Karen Byrne, co-host of the True Blue Politics podcast, and Illinois State Rep Abdel Nasser Rashid of the 21st District. They'll discuss Karina's bill, which requires law enforcement to confiscate firearms from people who are subject to domestic domestic violence orders of protection. Common sense as far as I'm concerned. Plus, Richard will be giving away a pair of stream codes, one each hour, for Stephanie Miller's Sexy Liberals Save the World Comedy Tour pay-per-view inauguration special. Choose Views weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. Central on WCPT 820. I got to say, guys, this text line is a lot more fun than my text line up in Appleton. It's very interesting because being a bona fide lefty, a tax-the-rich lefty, an anti-war lefty, you oftentimes get construed as MAGA. And I got to shout out to Mark. One love, baby. When did this become Fox News? Go back to the Alabama of the North, you moron. Now, first of all, I am not from Wisconsin originally. I'm from Pittsburgh. But also, fun fact, they say that Pittsburgh and Philly are two blue bastions and Alabama's in the middle. So we're kind of the Alabama of the Northeast as well. So you were close in the way you're saying it. But again, I'm just an anti-war lefty, my man. That's all I've ever been. That's all I will ever be. And if we really wanted to get into it, but I don't want to waste my entire 2 hours, but I could, most of that war in Ukraine is about having access to the minerals necessary to build semiconductor chips. This is about finding money for Intel. We could really get into that conversation if you wanted to, but there are far too many people waiting here. What way do we go here? You know what? We'll hit more texts in a second. I want to read them first because I can tell people are getting frustrated, and I'm here for it. Dave is on hold, though, and he's been waiting for a minute, so let's get him on here. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Ben. I think should start grooming for 2028.
Yeah.
Wes Moore of Maryland.
Okay. What makes you say that?
A veteran, a Rhodes Scholar, and he's cool because go back about a month when they had that Army-Navy game. I'm a veteran, Cold War veteran, but a veteran still. I was aghast when both President Biden and Vice President Harris didn't even go to that game, and that's like the most prestigious game.
Sure.
But up in the other one, there was Trump with all of his little minions and stuff in there, and that. And not so much even with Biden because he's done, he's finished. But Harris was running to be their commander-in-chief, and you couldn't even make an appearance. Shame on you.
Yeah. No.
You disqualified yourself for 2028. You might as well run for governor of California because,
Oh, if she runs in 2028, Democrats gave up. Please understand that right now. I don't think she had a chance to win. I mean, internal polling within the Democratic Party, we never even saw it. They didn't make it public till after November. She was never ahead in the polls. And what's worse is Joe Biden was always polling behind her, and that was within Democratic polling. I love where your mind's at with this. I'm more focused. I grew up in a household. My dad always would tell me, Ben, when you get a job, they're not going to offer you a raise. What they're going to offer you is warm fuzzies. They'll give you a title. They'll give you tickets to an event. They'll give you this. But what they'll never give you is something to materially improve your life. I hear what you're saying with all that, and I think liberals do need to come across more on the pro-veteran side, not the pro-war side, but the pro-veteran side. But showing up at those kind of events, like you said, Trump's a clown. You even refer to them as his minions. We're on the same page. Had he showed, did he stand a chance to win your vote because he showed up and Harris didn't? I'm willing to bet that's not the case, right?
No.
Right, and that's kind of where I'm coming down on it.
I try to hopefully be sometimes in the center, but it's pretty hard when my parents, they were both diehard Democrats because of the fact that they grew up in the Depression and all of that stuff, and they idolized FDR.
Yeah. No, yeah. I love that. Hey, I appreciate the insight, Dave, and thanks for the call, man. You take it easy, all right?
All right.
All right, thank you. And shout out to Mark, who said he respects me for reading the text message, and it's cool to mix it up. And, dude, don't worry about calling me names. That's the fun of it. I grew up in the city. I absolutely am used to this. This is how some of my favorite people in life and I interact with one another. You're never going to hurt my feelings. If you can't tell by the way I'm talking, I'm smiling this whole time. This is more interaction than what I get up in Appleton, that's for sure. We got another text here saying, and you both siders absolutely voted or not voted, as the case may be, to screw us. So you Greens or Dem socialists have nothing for us. Nothing. I mean, or the Liberal Party is nothing for us, one or the other. I mean, like your vote is not owed. And for the record, I voted for Kamala Harris, but I've also stated on my show multiple times that was my last hold your nose and vote it for the Democratic Party. They can either mean business going forward, or we need to start planning what another option is. If Donald Trump actually pulls off this ceasefire in the Middle East, I don't believe it. But if it actually happens, every single part of the Biden administration should absolutely be embarrassed. There is no justification that this orange crackpot is able to make one phone call. How many times are we told Joe Biden can't do this with a phone call? And he makes one phone call, and we might have a 6-week ceasefire. Like, something needs to be offered for people to show up. I showed up because I understood what was on the other side. I have gay people in my family. I've dated people of a number of different minority women in my life, and I know what was out there. But that guilt, that assumption that bad things will happen to the people in your life, you can only scare us with the negative so long. I was a psych major in college. Positive reinforcement always works better than negative reinforcement. Threatening me with what Donald Trump represents or threatening people on the fence, good luck. You got to bring material changes. And it's no coincidence that all these liberal Democrats are now paraphrasing Bernie Sanders 8 years after they prevented him from rising to the top. All right, we've got so much going on here. I believe Jennifer was next in line based on the wait. Yeah, let's go, Jennifer. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi. I was just calling about not the last caller, Dave, but the caller before that who said that Hillary was amassing weapons in Ukraine before Russia ever considered attacking Ukraine, and that's entirely untrue. She was the Secretary of State when Obama was in office, and Russia had already annexed Crimea, taken over part of Ukraine, and that's when they started giving weapons to Ukraine to defend themselves, because we said we would do that after we convinced them to give up their nuclear weapons when they wanted to secede from the USSR.
Right.
From not be part of Russia anymore.
But we also
he needs to get his history straight.
Right.
I'm anti-war myself, but you have to be able to defend yourself.
Sure. So if you don't mind me asking, because also at that time period in 2014, the U.S. government, Obama, not Hillary, mind you, I'm with you on that, was involved in a coup, essentially putting Zelensky in power there. So they had a president or, a leader there who was willing to work alongside Russia, find business operations. America said, nah, what if we put this guy in there who doesn't want to work with Russia? And that's what ultimately led to it. My frustration with America and the military-industrial complex, which you can maybe agree with, is we stick our nose in everything. People get mad at us, and then we get mad that they got mad. And it's like, well, we maybe should have just backed out of their politics, you know? Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the military-industrial complex, and Eisenhower warned against it.
Yes, he did.
It is a problem, and there's a lot of money to be made in war.
Yeah,
and Russia knows it, and the U.S. knows it.
Yes, ma'am.
And we need to be the better angels here, and we're not.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, though.
I don't think the Republicans are any better, though.
They are absolutely not.
They're not better.
No, yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. And you know what's crazy, Jennifer, is there are callers, MAGA callers, who were absolutely against the war in Ukraine. Israel-Palestine was a little more touch and go, and I'll be interested to see what ends up coming with China, but I'm going to be holding them to account. I say it on Patty's show regularly. I'm a firm believer that a lot of the stuff that ticked MAGA off during Biden will still exist during Trump. We just need to figure out how to capitalize on it, and we won't have to deal with this garbage in a couple years. We just gotta stick together and stay focused, and I'm hopeful. I love your attitude, though, in this call, and I appreciate it very much. You take it easy, all right?
Okay, you too. Thank you.
All right, awesome. We've got more, but we got to bounce here. I hope you guys can stick through the break. I promise. Paul, you're up. Dan, right on. Oh, Dan, right on. We'll get you guys both on the other side. We do need to break, though, real quick. This is Driving Home with Patti Vasquez with Ben Cominos here on WCPT.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
And we're back. This is Ben Cominos in for Patti Vasquez. I'll be here today, and I'll be with Patti tomorrow. She told me what she was doing today, but for the life of me, I wasn't paying attention. Tomorrow from 2 to 5, Joan Esposito will be here taking your calls and talking to Ed Yonka of the ACLU Illinois and Jeet here, national affairs correspondent for The Nation and host of The Nation's weekly podcast, The Time of Monsters. Plus, she'll be giving away tickets for the Capitol Fools show February 1st at the North Shore Center for Performing Arts and a stream code for Stephanie Miller's Sexy Liberal Save the World Comedy Tour pay-per-view inauguration special. That is a mouthful. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820. Can you guys tell what a natural reads doer I am? It just flows off the tongue when I do it. When I don't have a script, it's actually much more organic, is it not? All right. You guys have been so kind waiting through the break. Paul out in Seattle. Hey, what are you doing there, Paul?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great.
I think this past election was just the Democratic margin there was malaise. They were underwhelmed. And, I mean, certainly Trump got about the same number of votes as he did in 2020.
Yes, sir.
But, I mean, he didn't really improve on that.
I'll take you one step even further there, Paul. In the top 15 bluest counties in the nation, the top 15, Kamala Harris lost 2.9 million people that voted for Biden, and in those same counties, Trump gained 150,000. He's not gaining anything. It was absolutely apathy that sunk the Democrats in this election.
Which is really, I don't know where you place the blame. It's kind of like the approximate cause. Is it Biden dropped out too late and Kamala didn't have enough time? Or was the whole Biden-Harris ticket just poorly conceived from the very beginning because you've got a guy who clearly wasn't going to be able to serve more than one term? And then, here's the thing. What we've seen about the Democratic margin, I'm not saying the Democratic state, because the elections won in the margin, and our margin didn't show up.
Right.
Our margin of that extra 7, 8, 10 million votes didn't show, and I'm convinced that part of the Democratic Party, the Democratic electorate, is susceptible to the negativities of identity politics. And I'm not saying that Kamala Harris plays identity politics. I'm saying is that Democrats, if you run a woman or you run a person of color, the Republicans are going to play identity politics and then point the finger and say, you guys are always playing identity politics.
That's very real. They put us on the defensive, and then we say something like, why are you always talking about it? And it's like, well, because you guys are acting like a bunch of jags. But I think where you and I differ on this assessment, though, Paul, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, and this is the beauty of hosting a show, is all of my thoughts are on the record. Back in January of 23, and you can go back and listen, right when the Republicans took control of the House, I knew that there was no more meaningful legislation that was going to get across, right? Republicans are going to block anything that might accidentally benefit the working class. At that point, in January of 23, all the way up until the moment Joe Biden dropped out, the Democrat message on the economy was, Bidenomics is working. If you don't understand that the economy is good, that's on you, not on us. And I'm 37 years old. I own a home and I paid off my student loans. I am not the norm for my generation. There are a lot of people struggling right now. And to hear the Democratic Party, Donald Trump's trickle-down economics, I could give you a 2-hour history on how trickle-down economics has done nothing but leave us in a lurch since the 1920s. But when you're being told by one party, shut up, the economy's fine, and the other party says, look how expensive everything is. We already know they have no intention of lowering the price of anything. But that doesn't matter, because all they knew was Democrat strategy was up until Harris entered, and by that point, I believe the damage was done. Their economic messaging was lost this entire time. I don't know how. That's been my opinion.
Yeah, okay. That brings up a quandary, though. How does Biden talk about, or he should have gotten ahead of it, talk about how robust the economy was, and I think this is why he didn't, is because of exactly what you're pointing out, is that even though there was still, he says, the economy is strong, though there's work to do. Oh, that's kind of paltering. So,
right.
In other words, the Democrats don't want to feel like they're slapping the people who are struggling in the face, even though there's lots of economic good news that Trump would be out there 3 times a day telling you. And that's the thing, is that Joe Biden, the one thing he reminds me much of Lyndon Johnson, except what he did not do of the things that Lyndon Johnson would have done. I mean, Joe Biden was a master of legislation. You know, he got a lot of squeaky bills through, even after the Republicans took the House. He outmaneuvered the Republican speakers, both Mike Johnson and the one before him. What's his name? Flipping my head. He outmaneuvered both of them, and he got it done. But he doesn't talk about it, so people didn't realize the economy is moving along. Inflation. Nobody ever talked about what inflation is, except he did it in the debate with Trump. He did say there was no inflation when I took office because the economy was flat on its back. When an economy starts to roar back, look, you're going to have more money, you're going to have more demand than you have supply, certainly coming off of COVID. People don't understand this. I don't think most people can tell you what the hell inflation is. Inflation is not just high prices.
Yeah.
It's the fact that we have more money in the economy, and we had lost so many domestic options in terms of our production, and the rest of the world hadn't caught up. If you explain what inflation is a naturally occurring phenomena of a growing economy. It has to start with, it doesn't start with build it and they will come. It starts with demand, and so every growing economy is going to have some inflation. You look at the 60s, right now inflation is 2.9%, and people are saying, oh, that's a little uncomfortable. In the 60s, inflation was at 5+%.
Yeah.
So was economic growth. Economic growth in the 60s was still at 5.5% during Kennedy and Johnson's term. It only fell off to 2% when Nixon took office. But nobody cares about that crap.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of context here, and I appreciate the call, Paul. This was a good conversation. Yeah. I'm going to answer. You can listen here, and then we'll get Dan on in a second here. There's a lot that you said that is absolutely valid, but what I like to highlight, in 2019, forget about the COVID year, because obviously the economy tanked on Trump then. In 2019, Donald Trump had the record high stock market, record low unemployment, and all liberals were willing to point out that this was an economy for wealthy people, and it was. In 2024, Joe Biden had a record stock market and record low unemployment, and it was an economy for wealthy people, because it is. And the only difference is MAGA is willing to call it out when the Democrats are in power. Democrats are willing to call it out when MAGA's in power. This is why the whole party needs to rethink what it is. Anybody under 40 does not care about inflation metrics. You know what's happening? 6 people control all the resources, and they are artificially jacking up all of our prices. The inflation numbers are irrelevant. We were just talking. I bought a house in 2016. I got a report from Credit Karma showing me how much money I would make if I sold my house. It's obscene. It's obscene what would happen. I am not special. I am not a hard worker. I'm not exceptionally intelligent. It is just the luck of the draw. And there's an entire generation and a half of people locked out of that luck of the draw raffle right now. I'll tell you what. Should we do the break now and then do Dan? Yeah. Okay, Dan. I'm sorry, man. Please stick around. You're the first thing in the next break. I promise you. We do have to get to another break here. We're pressing up against it. We'll be back in just a second here. You're listening to Driving Home with Patti Vasquez.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
Just total fake news. It's me, Ben Cominos, filling in for Patti Vasquez. I'll be here today and tomorrow. This has been an incredibly enjoyable show, and we're going to keep it rolling right now. We're talking about just everything under the sun. I said like 3 things, and that's elicited a bunch of calls here. Dan Schaefer on the line right now. How are you, bud?
Ben, I am embarrassed to say that I have never listened to your show, and I love Wisconsin, and so I am going to listen to your show starting now. So,
lovely.
I went to school up in De Pere, Wisconsin, so that's my happy place. So I love it.
Oh,
up there.
great!
So you have a new listener now.
Awesome.
I just want to point out, and so Patty has me. I used to have my own show on WCPT called The Politini Sunday mornings. So that's no longer a thing. But Patty graciously asks me to co-host or fill in for her. And Jim from Chicago and I used to always talk about this because prior to the election, I would always just remind people that he can win again. Like he can't. Like he won in 2016, and it only took 80,000 votes in a country of 300 plus million people. Granted, all of those people aren't eligible to vote, but that's all it takes. That's all it took for him to win against Hillary Clinton, lover or hater, but she was qualified for the job. And so Jim would always call in and say, don't think like that. And I was like, no, but we have to think like that. We have to think. Like everyone's saying, like, well, we just got to make it to the midterms. I was like, yeah, we do. But we have to change how we're acting going into the midterms. And it needed to start in November. Like, we can't just assume that, oh, well, Donald Trump's over now, so it doesn't matter because after 4 years, it was like, no. We have 4 long years ahead of us, people. If we could take back the House or the Senate, we have the game plan.
Yeah, I feel like the Senate might be a pipe dream for 2026. I hope I'm wrong, but we absolutely should be focusing on the House right now. And more importantly, Dan, you know what the kicker for me is that I at least understood why people voted for Trump in 2016. Hell, in March of 2016, I was on the fence about actually making the plunge until I dove into who he really was and stopped buying all the rhetoric.
Right.
2024 Trump, I don't even understand what the appeal was other than what's happening isn't good, because he completely ditched the populist front. He very obviously was taking donations from people, and they'd be like, but we expect this in return, and it absolutely is going to happen. There was no working class solidarity, and to me, the idea that he was able to win this time without any of that messaging really highlights just how behind the 8 ball the Democratic Party really is. And I'll even provide you with an example. You and I covered this how much over the course of the last year? It's all we thought about. Every single time I had a Democrat or Republican on my show who was running for office, the first question I would ask, what are we going to do about health care? Because no one was talking about it, Democrat or Republican. And then you flash forward till December, Luigi Mangione happens. Turns out everybody's ticked off about health care, and it seems like it was a winning option. And I have to ask, $1.5 billion later, however the hell much they ended up raising for that Harris campaign, where were all the higher ups saying, maybe we should talk about this very obviously polarizing topic? You know what I mean?
Yeah, or healthcare in general, or also as Paul from Seattle, which I love Paul. I love all the callers for WCPT.
Sure.
Why weren't people talking more about, Biden's, he was able to get Medicare enhanced with things like, dental and hearing and, stuff that you think would be available to our seniors.
And every Republican voted against it. And every Republican tried to stop it.
And they touted it. So the infrastructure bill, which we went, 4 years with Donald Trump and never had one infrastructure bill. Joe Biden gets it done in his first term. All the Republicans vote against it, but then they go back to their home districts and they're like, look at what we did. This is what's coming to our district and our state. And
yeah.
It's just insane. And Republicans are really, really good. And I hate saying this, but Donald Trump is really, really smart when it comes to his messaging, because he just repeats the same stupid thing over and over and over again, and then people just believe it as truth. Whereas on our side, we're like, well, this is happening, but this also. It's like, no, just say it.
Right.
Right now, the Republicans are trying to, I think, cut the child tax credit in half. Like, there's so many things that they are just trying to push, and people didn't realize that. I think in student loans, there were a huge number of younger voters that voted for Donald Trump. He's going to, whatever hope that they have of getting rid of student loans, I think that's way out the window. And Joe Biden tried, but then he put together a plan where, I mean, you could not pay anything based on your income, and it wouldn't be accumulating interest and this and that and blah, blah. That's all gone at this point. But that's how people voted, and it's...
Yeah. I mean, Dan, I don't know if you heard the start of my show here. The way I started the conversation was while everyone else is talking about confirmations and whatnot, I was highlighting a lawsuit the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is bringing against Capital One, alleging that they had stolen $2 billion from their customers.
I did hear that.
Donald Trump is running on eliminating, like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and all the morons at Doge are running on eliminating that specific agency that does nothing except crack down on people taking advantage of people from a money perspective. That's what people have been mad about for the last 4 years, and Trump ran on, I'm actually going to eliminate that, and they voted for it. We need to wake up to a fact that they do, for whatever reason, MAGA voters do not believe Democrats have intentions of doing things. Part of that is because every single Republican votes against anything that would be good for the working class. But I think Democrats do need to come across to a certain extent as well. You talk about student loans here. During the primary in 2020, Bernie Sanders said, while they were going against one another, if you try and forgive student loans this way, the Supreme Court will block it. What you need to do is this, and then issue an executive order because of a climate emergency or whatever, and you'll be able to forgive loans through this. I don't have the specifics in front of me because I didn't know the conversation was going to go there. Sure. But when you see that there was a path laid forward and Joe Biden and Democrats chose to do the one that was going to get rolled back, and they announced that they were doing it a month before the midterms, it breeds an element of distrust within the electorate. And I don't think they're in a position to really play with voters right now. Is where I'm coming at it.
Well, and here I want to play off when you were talking about Elon Musk and Doge.
Yeah.
I find it. I used to be a very, very conservative Republican, and now I'm as far left a gay man. I used to be as far right as you could imagine.
Oh my God, that's so intriguing. That's so intriguing.
Well, that's why I wanted to talk about. Also, I'm a gay man now, and I realize that the Republicans don't like gay people, so it's fine. But then I realized that when you mentioned Doge, like how fiscally responsible is it to create an entire new agency and hire a ton of highly paid individuals to identify efficiencies within the government? Right. I don't understand. Like the logic is just not. It's not there. It's not there. I get it. There is a lot of wasteful spending. The one thing that you were talking about hearings, the Pete Hegseth hearing and stuff like that, which one of the most unqualified individuals to even set foot in that room. That might not be true because if you listen to some of the Republican senators questioning, they might, But it's like, so let's take a look at our military spending. Let's take a look at our other funding, and let's not just take it away. Let's figure out what other agencies might be able to use that funding. Let's just kind of reallocate it, right? Let's make sure we are taking care of our. I've been listening I'm 37, right? But I've been hearing the veterans, the VA, we need to take care of our veterans. I was like, okay, then somebody do it, right? Like, we need to take care of our seniors. All right, somebody do it. Like, come on, people, Republicans, Democrats, let's figure it out. We're adults, or some are.
Hey, we could play this. Not at all, man. We could play this game of back and forth all day. I'll take you on even further, and then I'm going to move on. But I will, because I love where your mindset is here. We have Derek Van Orden, right?
If you want me to call into your show, I'm happy to call into your show at some point.
Yeah, well, we'll need to bring that back as well. But you know our guy Derek Van Orden, right? Not particularly favorable amongst a bunch of people on our side. He is touting the fact that he's trying to crack down on food stamp waste. Now, that's $1.7 billion worth of welfare primarily being taken away from people that objectively need it. In Medicare Advantage, there is $80 billion yearly just in overcharge fees. So you go as a Medicare Advantage customer, you have 3 diseases that need 3 ailments. They say, actually, we're going to give you these 6 different medications, even though you only need 3, and you're only going to have to pay like $7 a month for them. And you're like, oh, what a tremendous boon. It turns turns out the reason you're not paying for them is because it comes out of the Medicare fund, $80 billion a year. So Van Orden shows up, says, oh, $1.7 billion a year. I'll save you $17 billion over a decade. Okay, great. I found $800 billion worth of savings, and I'm just a guy with a talk show. Like, what are they? Like, they don't need these extravagant measures.
Right, real quick, and then I know you got to move on. The food stamp subject, right? We got to cut down on food stamps. So I live the northwest side of Chicago, not far from WCPT, but I go all over, right? So I notice, like, on the south and the west side of the city, like, eggs and milk is at least $1 or $2 more than it is on the northwest side, because the assumption, I guess, and this is where we get into corporate greed and all this other stuff, they just assume it's going to be food stamps and WIC, and so there you go. These corporations are like, well, we'll just take it's I call it it's private. You privatize the winnings and you socialize the losses. It's corporate capitalism. It's corporate socialism, I guess I would say.
Yeah, it's broken is what it is. I call it broken.
With you.
Yeah, you too, man. This is good.
True. Yeah.
We'll get in touch.
Right,
we'll keep it rolling. Yeah, right on, man. You take it easy. All right. Yeah, thank you. Always a good time. He's been on my show 3 or 4 times up in Appleton, and we got together. That's when I met Patti and company. There is at the RNC, and Dan came by and said hello there as well. He and I obviously synced up. I didn't know we were the same age. He's much more mature than I am. I assumed he was much older than me. But we're the same age, which is kind of wild. But I'll tell you guys what, because we take it straight to the top here, right? We write it. Yeah, okay. So I see I have some people on hold, and I don't want to shortchange you. So if you can wait through the break, that would be great. We still do have an entire another hour, and I absolutely love the interaction, and I am happy to do this with you the entire time. But there's also a ton that I would like to jump into here as well, specifically focusing on the Biden farewell address and a lot of the polling highlighting why so many people in Gen Z didn't show up. Remarkable studies showing that abortion is not as high up on the list anymore because so many states have kind of taken it into their own hands. And as someone talking to you guys who lives in Wisconsin, we have a pretty major Supreme Court election coming up next year. And if they're intending to run on the idea of abortion access, it might not pay the same dividends. And they're not running against a crackpot like Dan Kelly that they were in 2023. So they need to really work on their messaging here. So they do need to evolve. I do see that we have Gregory and Roosevelt both waiting on hold. So please do stick around through that. We are going to have to go to a quick, we got top of the hour news here and a little bit of a break, but we will be back on the other side of that, and we're just going to continue rolling along, guys. This is Ben Cominos filling in for Patti Vasquez, driving it home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
You are not. You're actually driving it home with Ben Cominos, filling in for Patti Vasquez today and having an absolute blast doing it. You guys have been a ton of fun, both on the text and call lines. You know, what's interesting. So I host a show called Outside the Box up on WHBY Radio in Appleton. And it's a very highly researched show. I joke, I don't have any kids. So my hobby is the job. The job is my hobby. We are one and the same. I absolutely love doing it every single day. I never know what the next day's show is going to be because I let the news of the day dictate where I'm going, and I hyper-focus and research and learn about what's talking. I am standing here with 6 or 7 different stories stapled together and highlighted in different colors that I was preparing to share with you guys, and all I did was make one comment about Joe Biden, and we have been carrying this for the last hour. It's an entirely different experience compared to what I am used to, but I'll tell you what, I'm here for it, and I hope you guys are as well. We're going to keep it rolling. I have stuff I could say, but Gregory here has been waiting for almost 18 straight minutes, and I don't have it in me to make you wait any longer there, Gregory. Thank you so much for your patience. What's happening, man?
Well, good evening. John Esposito, who hosts the show, as we all know, before Patti Vasquez, has been citing the research as we all try to do a post-mortem to understand why the Democrats lost this historic election, and has put the Republic at risk to a loose cannon, Donald Trump, has cited that polling has determined that many young people stayed home because of the way the war in Gaza has been mismanaged and that he was not able to rein in Netanyahu. However, what you get from a poll is an answer to the question asked. And I'm 64 years old, and I attended the European Nuclear Disarmament Conference in March of 1983 in West Berlin. There are millions upon millions of Americans deathly afraid of the war in Ukraine, possibly escalating into some kind of nuclear, if not all-out nuclear exchange, destroying both of our countries and a whole lot more. And the Democratic Party is in denial about that because it's very emotionally painful to talk about how we have not been able to bring the war in Ukraine to an end like crazy Donald Trump says he's going to try to do quickly. So, I just went ahead and voted for Jill Stein because I can't vote for crazy Donald Trump, who's a loose cannon, but at least he's going to maybe be good for one good thing, which is to end the war in Ukraine. And I can't back Harris and Biden with this whole NATO push up against Russia, which is unfair, and Reagan and Gorbachev had resolved all this back in the late 80s. But, this is then you never hear anybody in the Democratic Party community on TV or in talk show or in general talk about what role did the war in Ukraine that they weren't trying to end but trying to win by pushing the Russians out and allowing for short-range missiles heading into Russia.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
They don't know if that's a first strike decapitating nuclear missile or just a regular missile. It's a very unstable situation. The discussion has had nuclear war, possibly, or nuclear strike or tactical nuclear bomb in the background, and they do nuclear exercises in NATO and America, and Biden has authorized nuclear exercises. It's insanity. We lost millions of votes or hundreds of thousands of votes, key votes in the swing states, because of the way the war in Ukraine has been mismanaged and not brought to an end. All you have to do is let the 1,000-year-old eastern region of the Donbass go to the Russians and the Ukrainians agree not to join NATO, and it's over.
Do you know why that never happened?
It's a very big why. Why?
So I'll try and give you the Reader's Digest version. It would probably take me an hour to do this appropriately. But so Joe Biden signed the CHIPS Act, which was supposed to get our manufacturing up off the ground to produce semiconductor chips, which is allegedly the technology of the future, and that seems to be the way signs are pointing. There is $10 to $12 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars worth of the necessary minerals. We're talking germanium, gallium, nickel, cobalt, antimony. The list goes on and on. $10 to $12 trillion located in Ukraine. You'll never guess what region houses 70% of those minerals. That's right. It's the Donbass region. The reason why Democrats and by extension the United States government refuse to even let go of that percentage of Ukraine is not out of concern for the people of Ukraine. It's not out of worry about democracy. It's not even worry about the alleged claim that Vladimir Putin is going to be the Adolf Hitler of this century. It is because they want access to those minerals. And you'll never guess what area also has those minerals. Greenland. So that is where this conversation all goes full circle. If America actually does that and Donald Trump ends the war in Ukraine, you will remember this conversation because no one's going to make the jump. No one's going to say that the war in Ukraine ended because we bought Greenland. They're going to be portrayed as two entirely separate instances. But mark my words, if one happens, the other will end. That's what this is about. And the real kicker, and then I'll let you respond, is that it wouldn't even, I'm not saying I'd be okay with the death of 1 million Ukrainian and Russians, because I'm not. But it's not even like we're going to get the stuff cheaper. It's so the companies can get access to the materials cheaper and then gouge us on the other side still. That is what all of these wars are about. And it's incredibly frustrating that I don't think enough people are talking about this. And if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, you'll never guess what area has the plants necessary to be able to manufacture 90% 80% of the semiconductor chip demand? Taiwan. Guess where else we're talking about freeing people and saving their democracy? It all ties together here, and Democrats and Republicans are both fighting for that. The only reason Trump ends it is because he finds the minerals somewhere else. I'll let you respond.
You make me proud that I spent 10 years and 10 months in your state capitol working in the state senate and the Department of Do Nothing Right. I mean the Department of Natural Resources. So thank you for improving and reviving. Thank you for improving. Thank you for improving. Thank you for improving my faith in progressive radio talk show host. I'll let you go. Nice to meet you.
Right on. You too, Gregory. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Yeah, needless to say, I focus on this a lot, and I actually minimized the text line. Let's see if someone said anything mean. No, you guys didn't. You guys are great. Yeah, these conversations normally elicit reactions out of people that they don't like to hear, because when the news, when the mainstream media, when MSNBC and CNN are telling you, this is the next Hitler. If we don't stop him, he's taking all of Europe. I am not saying Putin's a good guy. He's not. Objectively, he's not. Look at anything. He's not a good guy. This has nothing to do with that. This is a business transaction. You know what's crazy is Ukraine and Russia, even in 2022, were actually working on a peace negotiation, and I have a feeling, not knowing the details, it was probably about some kind of partnership to deal with these minerals being brokered by Turkey. America steps in. Anthony Blinken steps in, says, nah, dog, we got you. We'll send you the missiles. We'll send you everything you need. Why don't you just do business with us? 2.5 years later and 1 million deaths later, here we are. This is what this is. This is why I'm so anti-war. And we're not even touching on Israel-Gaza, which I think is even more egregious than what's going on. Andy hopped on the text line here, says, how do you like Appleton, which is in the conservative Fox Valley, versus Pittsburgh, which has grown more progressive as it's left the steel industry behind? I'll tell you, Appleton, when you're in the city limits, as I in the radio station am, it's actually surprisingly progressive. It's a very open-minded area, tons of renewable energy projects going on that you'd be completely oblivious to if you're not there. I'll answer your question with this. When I'm in Appleton and I'm out at the bars with friends of mine and I mention that I'm going to Milwaukee to do a thing, they start talking crap on people that live in the city. Then I go to the city and I say, oh, yeah, I do radio up in Appleton, and all the people in the city make fun of me for living in Appleton. Both sides making fun while I'm making friends in both areas that have plenty of good things going on. And instead of recognizing that we really aren't against each other that often, we focus on the differences as opposed to the similarities. I base my show outside the box on the idea that 70% of what we care about, we all care about the same thing. There's 30% around the edges that we can go back and forth on that don't question, whether trans people can exist or whatever. Like, clearly there's no wiggle room there, but there's some menial conversations we could absolutely have. But in the city limits of the Fox cities, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised by the way I'm very well received. We will say that. And I talk this way. I probably am even harder on Democrats up in that area, and liberals are all over the place and on board with what I'm doing. It's definitely that's my best answer. As soon as you step outside the city limits, different conversation. It's a different conversation. I don't know how many people are listening to me there. I don't really hang out there. But in the city limits, it's been an incredibly enjoyable experience. But I do miss Pittsburgh, just having lived there. And I was in a very diverse part of town. We were all, like I said, I'm 37 years old, single, no kids. And that was the norm in Pittsburgh. Like, I was part of just an awesome community, diverse community. We were all over the spectrum, and it was awesome. Very homogenized in the Fox cities. That's what sticks out to me the most out of anything else that I'm noticing there. Mike says, wow, great rant. So nice to hear someone speak what all us progressives have known. You need to have your own show on WCPT. You got to tell management there about that one. I appreciate that very much. Break time, then we'll do more calls. Yeah, we'll do that. I'm asking Lady B, like she runs the show. She's on the drums. I'm just holding on I could do this with you guys for 5 hours. I'm having the time of my life. We got to go to break. We'll be back. Ben Cominos filling in for Patti Vasquez, WCPT.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
All right. Ben Cominos filling in for Patti Vasquez, driving home with Patti Vasquez. She'll be back tomorrow, as will I. Should be a fun show. I haven't done a full 2 hours with her. I'll probably be a little less checked than I am this time. I feel like we're handling it well, though. I think we're doing all right here. By the way, BTW, I forgot to welcome Minnesota, KTNF, AM 950, and WCPT 820 on the Heartland Signal. Welcome to the party here. It's exactly what it's been. It's been a party, and it's been an incredibly enjoyable one at that. 26 minutes. God, I love you, Roosevelt. That's so nice of you to be hanging out that long. Let's see what we got here. Hello, you're on Driving It Home with Ben Cominos / Patti Vasquez.
First of all, how you doing? Happy New Year. Hope everything goes well for you, man.
Thank you so much, man. Same to you. I appreciate that.
Now, here I'm going to touch upon a couple of things that came to mind as you were talking, and the callers that were talking. And that is, I haven't heard anybody mention the obvious. And that is racism. That's how he ran. I'm Mexican-American. When he came down the escalator and he said the things that he said against Mexicans, it was all over for me. I knew who he was. I didn't have to wait.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all. Second of all, so he played the same card. And as a matter of fact, Ben, do you remember what the most effective ad that Trump put out?
It was the trans one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another minority. Another minority. That's my point. Okay, so here, I'm going to jump from that and let you chew on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to jump to this, the obvious again, that hasn't been mentioned. And that is this. Somebody said, I don't know who said it, I think it was Dave, I don't know who said it earlier, and that is that they repeat the same thing. He repeats the same thing, and it sticks, and it sticks. But the obvious thing is this has been going on for more than 30 years. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the media. I'm talking about the way he's treated by the media. So when the Democrats do good things, nobody's there to cover it. And what does Trump have? What if the Republicans had since Reagan?
Fox, sure.
Reagan?
Yeah.
Not only Fox, you had Rush Limbaugh. That's what started it all. That's what started the divide. That's what started all this. And that plays a big, I don't know how you feel about it, but plays a big part. Of course they're going to see him. And look, in the first round when he got in there, he got $2 million, if I'm not mistaken, Ben, of free press. Let's take the obvious again.
Yeah.
Joe and Mika made a complete circle. They went from covering him when 16, and they invited him. Remember how we used to do it? He used to call in all the shows, including Joe and Mika. People forget that.
Oh, yeah, it was a ratings boon for them in the 2016 election. Yeah, for sure.
And Ben, correct me if I'm wrong again, but they fell for it again. They did it again because of the crazy stuff that he says. He knows how to play the media. He knows how to manipulate them. And the Democrats don't have that. They don't have a Fox News, which shouldn't be called Fox News because it's all opinions. And they're the ones that grind it. Here's my obvious again. The guy that they want to put in, he came from Fox News. He worked for Fox News.
Hegseth for the defense secretary. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So they're working hand in hand. One gives the other one the ideas. And plenty of times I've seen, not that I watch Fox News all the time, but I know the game, and that is Hannity. He gives them. Look at the interviews that they've had with him. They help him out. Maria Valteromo, all these idiots, they constantly help him out if he falls or if he trips, and so they're there for him. They're his cane. They're the third leg.
Yeah.
So my point is this, and I've been going on and on, but my point is this: is that we don't have that. We need that. We need somebody to buy stations and put out the word, because Democrats don't get cover. They do something like, to me, this is what I said in Spanish. I called Spanish stations. This is what I said. and I'd say it, and this is not hardly ever mentioned, it's very important. Biden, with me, I was satisfied with the fact that he stopped the war. The war that was started by who? By
Bush, yeah.
Another Republican. And I'm jumping to another one. All this is happening because of why, in my opinion? Because they pardoned Nixon. Nixon begot Reagan. What did Reagan do? Iran-Contra. And what did old man Bush do? Okay? Same thing. He raised taxes when he promised he wasn't going to raise taxes. And what did his son do? Started a 20-year war that is the longest war in the history of the United States. How did he start it?
With a lie.
Mass destruction.
Right. Yeah, I hear a lot of what you're saying. I hear a lot of what you're saying there, Roosevelt, and I have calls backing up, so I do appreciate a lot of your insight. You gave me a lot of information there to kind of digest that I absolutely need to tread carefully with some of it. First, I'm going to agree with you. I have a running bit that I do on my show that anytime a conservative calls in and plays any type of the anti-woke garbage, I'll start screaming, they're coming to trans your kids, because that seems to be how they think all the time. It's kind of like they're going to take your guns of the 2020s. Seems to be the thread here. As far as the racism and sexism goes, that is always going to be prevalent in society, and I'm not even going to pretend for a second that is not the case. But as I can see is going to tick off one of my texters here very much based on the way that he or she is already setting it up there. If the only thing liberals take out of this election is that everybody who voted for Trump is sexist and racist, get ready to salute President J.D. Vance in 2028. That's full stop. That's where this is ultimately headed. We are at a point right now where 60% of the American population cannot afford a spare set of tires. We have to drop the identity, and that's easy for me to say. Elephant in the room, straight white guy talking to you right now. I understand that is easy for me to say right now. But the fact of the matter is, when we have 60% of people that cannot afford an $1,000 expense, that is white people, that is black people, that is Mexican people, that is Asian people, that is gay people, that is trans people, that is men, that is women. Everybody is struggling. All Democrats need is a message to bring people up. And that message can't be Bidenomics is working. Yes, it was from a pure metric standpoint, and I understand that. Inflation numbers were doing better than in any other industrialized country. Stock market good, unemployment good. No one can afford anything, and it's because of corporate greed. You know when the Democrats decided they want to attack corporate greed? After January of 23, when they no longer had control of the House. Coincidence? Oh, this is my point. You are absolutely right. Here's where you and I are going to disagree, Roosevelt, is that let's say I were syndicated on 1,000 channels as an obvious anti-Republican guy. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I didn't just watch a genocide and the Democrats pretend like it was happening. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like, groceries are pretty affordable. I don't know what they're talking about. You bring up Joe and Mika. Joe, a month before Biden dropped out, was telling us that Joe Biden was the sharpest he's ever been. We need people that tell the truth, but more importantly, care about the working class. That is what we need. We're going to squeeze Pam in right now because she's been waiting for a minute. Pam, can you hear me there, Pam? Hello. You're on Driving Home with Patti Vasquez. What's up, Pam?
Thank you. Sorry you're going to squeeze me in, but I'm agreeing with Roosevelt. I hear you understand. It seems like I'm hearing you saying racism, sexism, that's identity politics. But 90% of black people voted for Harris.
Yeah.
90% of women, 80% of black men. So now, is that to say that black people, we're not suffering? We're not having issues with eggs, and so I don't understand. I'm tired of trying to coddle white people.
Oh, I totally understand. I totally understand that messaging that you're.
You don't really understand.
Why not?
I know you. You don't really understand.
Why not?
Because you just really don't. Because you're not a black person.
Okay.
Because you don't.
No, okay.
That's where I'm coming from. So can I just say what I need to say?
Please do.
So I'm hearing that all of you want to coddle the white people that supported Trump.
That's not what I'm saying, but okay.
Well, not you, but the rest of you, what I hear on WCPT. Richard True can't be the only host on here talking about the truth of where we are. Right now you have a convergence of every hate group. Ku Klux Klan, Proud Boys, 1%ers, 3%ers, all of them.
Okay.
Have now have a strong alliance. And you even have some black so-called community activists who are a part of that coalition because they're upset with the Democratic Party.
So can I ask you a question based on what you're saying there?
Yes.
So, okay, great. So you're 100% accurate in what you're saying. The point that I'm trying to make is that I am fully appreciative of the fact that there are systems in place that have screwed over people like you and plenty of other communities that I am absolutely on board with dismantling. And there's also a bunch of dumbass white people that voted against their own self-interest and have found themselves in fairly comparable positions to a lot of minority groups in this country, one of which, in yours, not to say all minorities found themselves, some also make bad decisions, but a lot of yours is systemic. A lot of what white people do is through ignorance and stupidity. But the fact of the matter is, everybody's in the same boat now. We're at a point where 60% of people can't afford anything across the entire spectrum. I am not equating the way in which two people got there, and it's infuriating that we have to hold the hands of white people that voted for politicians that put us in this situation. But the only way out is through. Your frustration is understood. Your frustration is heard. I promise you. The only way out of this is with them. That needs to be something that we come to grips with. Again, otherwise we're going to keep dealing with Republicans. I'll give you the final word, and then we got to roll here.
I'm going to say, here's what I'd like for you white people to do. This is what the white community. Why don't you all work on eradicating the racism? Why don't you go out there and talk in your white community to your white relatives, to your white co-workers? Do the work that black people have been doing for centuries, trying to get us out of this mess. If you all would work on that, I think that would take us a lot further when you talk about having just some parity in this country, some equity. And this election very much was about hate and racism and the support of a sexual predator who is an adjudicated sexual abuser. I have no love, no anything for someone who would vote for a sexual abuser.
Yeah, I hear that.
Because if you grab the private part of their wife or their mother, would they still vote for them?
Right, no.
I think you're offering up too many excuses. Last point, now anytime you use Hitler or you adorn Hitler or praise Hitler, that's supposed to be the kiss of death. Yeah. I haven't heard too much from the Jewish community, the Anti-Defamation League. I haven't heard nearly enough from them based on what this sexual predator has said. But anytime a black person says anything about Hitler, we have to denounce someone. We fired. We have to lose a job. Dr. Claudine Gay at Harvard lost her position.
Yeah.
Because the Jewish people didn't feel like she acted in accordance with what they wanted. I'm upset. I want the white community to deal with the white hatred. They're not doing it because why? Because they benefited from it, and they continue to benefit from it. And this media won't ask or do anything that they think is going to harm this sexual predator. Joe Biden got in office. Every day he was asked, well, how are you going to unify the community? What are you going to do about the divide? How are you going to unify the country? What are you going to do about the divide?
Yeah.
I don't hear that question coming to him.
Yeah.
So I'm upset right now with the white people in this country. And it very much was about hate, misogyny, and very much sexism. And I don't know what is your – it sounds like you have a different strategy to deal with it. But until the white people confront white people about what's going on, then it's going to continue. And I'm saying I want Harris for 2028 because black people are sick of it.
All right. Hey, I appreciate the call, Pam. I'm late. I do appreciate the insight for what it's worth. I preach against it for 2 hours every day. I try my best to do what I can. I'm getting that look. We got to go. We'll be back in a little bit.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
There's so much that goes on behind closed doors.
On WCPT 820.
Hey guys, just a reminder that Driving It Home has 2 new podcasts, Driving It Home full episodes and Driving It Home featured interviews. You can subscribe to one or both The podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Amazon. Just search for Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez, or get the links on the Driving It Home show page by visiting heartlandsignal.com and clicking on Patti's picture. Maybe don't listen on Amazon, though. Not a big Jeff guy. All right. Interesting conversations we've been having, for sure, over the course of the last 15 minutes that I absolutely welcome. I really do want to highlight for everyone listening, because I recognize I'm talking to you guys as if you've known me for the last 2.5 years that I'm doing radio, and this is the first time a lot of you guys are hearing me. Please understand that I do my best every single day to do an inclusive show and keep people involved and keep people happy. I am not thrilled with the Democratic performance, and I would argue most of us shouldn't be happy about it either. There was clearly a lot of ball droppage. What sticks out to me is it kind of reminds me of back in the 2016 Democratic primary, when Bernie Sanders said, "I want to break up the banks," and Hillary Clinton announced, "What will breaking up the banks do to end racism?" Well, I mean, it would stop a monopoly in the banks that clearly don't know how to manage our money appropriately, and I'm a firm believer that racism only exists in a country where most people don't have stuff. It's easy to keep people mad at one another when everybody's broke. That's my attitude. If everyone weren't broke, there'd still be racism, there'd still be sexism, but it would be a lot less than what's going on, because there's a bunch of stupid broke people running around and they need something to blame. They're not going to blame upward, they're going to blame downward or laterally. That's the way we operate. My parents always told me, growing up, people are crabs. If you try and make yourself better, if you try and crawl out of the bucket, they pull you back in the bucket. We can't be doing that to one another. I think a lot of people that are progressive understand that. It's a matter of waking up other people to that fact. I choose to do it by highlighting systemic inequality aimed at all people, because we are all in a system right now where college is unaffordable, child care will bankrupt you, elder care will bankrupt you. All of these different factors contributing against us do not care about the color of your skin. Democrats are happy to tell you, be your true self, be who you are, and also be broke. Like, that's the attitude here, and I get it. Should be anger. I see that. I have a text here. It says she has good points and her anger is well directed. White people that just give up the old hatreds of their daddies and grandpas. I absolutely agree. But there's no magic wand that I can wave. The reason people are mad or people are looking for a scapegoat. Always remember, in the 1930s, a bunch of countries turned to fascism, others turned to democracy. You know which ones turned to democracy? The ones that invested in social welfare programs. The one that taxed rich people between 70 and 91%. You know which ones ended up blaming Jews for their shortcomings? The ones that were investing in defense spending and anti-immigration policy. We are watching America walk down that path. We need a party that's willing to stand up and actually be the next FDR. Not this garbage that liberals were saying Joe Biden was going to be. An actual FDR to come through and pull us out of this. Brian's been waiting on hold here, so we're going to get Brian on. Hey, Brian, what's happening, man? You're on not Outside the Box. Driving Home with Patti Vasquez. What's up?
You're doing a wonderful job and a very important show today.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. I just happen to have in my hands the Washington Post, Washington, Wednesday, November 4th, 1936. President Roosevelt is reelected in landslide. And it says Dems increased big majority in Congress, and New Deal will hold and will be increased. And my question is if we could have Franklin Roosevelt getting reelected like he did with the New Deal and 1944, his economic Bill of Rights, which he never got to complete because he passed away in April of 1945, which would have ended homelessness and had free health care and education, etc. Why can't we have someone like that? I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And I'm a democratic socialist. Mm-hmm. You know, that people, now you hear these right-wingers, I call them fascists, on the radio. They're saying they're so thrilled we're going back to Ronald Reagan. Well, Reagan was a libertarian, really, and he wanted to get rid of all social safety net programs.
Right.
And And he even said, the worst words anyone could hear is government here to help you. And government is not the solution, it's the problem, which is just the opposite of Franklin Roosevelt, LBJ's Great Society. And Joe Biden, I did vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, me too.
But I really was, I'm wondering, I have a question for you, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Do you think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez might run for president?
I think she's got a shot. I know she's burning a lot of her progressive credentials, what with the partnering with Nancy Pelosi and whatnot. But she, to me, is one of the greatest success stories in American politics, because you're talking to a former bartender here. And I remember before I even got involved in the media game, I was selling software in the construction industry, concrete optimization software. And I'm sitting there watching this young woman wearing shoes for crews. And if you've never worked in a bar or restaurant before, they are these gross-looking black shoes that do not slip when you're walking around in a kitchen. And if you're wearing any other shoes, because you will wipe the hell out if you are wearing normal shoes in any restaurant kitchen. She is on the subway in New York taking off her shoes for crews and switching into high heels because she's going to a campaign event after bartending. We need an entire House of Representatives that is their history, not working at million-dollar companies, not insider trading. We've got people that have been in the House for 30, 40, 50 years. We got people hiding in nursing homes. We got people falling and now needing walkers. We've got Dianne Feinstein, who needed to be propped up for the last 6 months of her life, and if you pointed it out, it was sexism. Like, the list goes on and on. To answer your question, I hope that she makes a run for it, because we need people that are talking that way. It should stick out to you, Brian, that we instituted presidential term limits not because we had a Hitler or some fascist doing bad things. It's because we had a progressive doing good things. And the powers that be were like, oh, son of a gun, if we don't put term limits in, people like this are going to win for the rest of our lives. Like, that should kind of sum up a lot of the problems that we're dealing with in this country. And one other thing to leave you with, on my show, during the Democratic primaries that most of the mainstream ignored, brought both Cenk Uygur and Marianne Williamson on my show to talk about what they wanted to do. Marianne Williamson ran on resurrecting the second Bill of Rights, right to a job, right to food, right to housing. I'd argue that those principles would probably have done pretty well in an election this year, but instead, the Democratic Party decided to pretend that a primary wasn't even happening. I'm not sitting here pretending that she would have been a good president, but you think maybe they could have picked up on an idea or two that she might have been running on. Did we lose Brian, or is he? No, yeah. Go ahead, Brian. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with you. I'm right on board, and I thought there should have been more to hear more from Marianne Williamson. Was her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more from her, and I wanted to hear more from Dr. West.
Yeah, for sure.
And at least bring them into the conversation, and that may have actually helped Vice President Harris in the general election.
I would think so. Hey, Brian, I appreciate the call, man, and your insight. Thanks for calling in. You take it easy, all right?
You too. Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, of course, man. Thank you. We've got Dave on the text line. Ben, bottom line, Biden should have kept his original word and been a one-term president, 100%. He was going to be a bridge for the future younger Democrats. Instead, he got hubris and forgot about Father Time. Undefeated Father Time is, ladies and gentlemen. If he'd kept his word, Harris would have been primaried, and that would have been a younger Democrats would have felt like their voice wasn't being heard, and a stronger candidate would have come out of it. I totally agree with you, Dave, and I'll even take you a step further. Back in the 2020 primary, Andrew Yang, if you remember him, he was asked during one of the debates, how would you fix the economy? And his answer was, I'm Asian and I'm good at math, so I'll fix the economy. He was polling at 1%. Kamala Harris was polling at 0%. She was less popular in 2020 than the guy who said, I can fix the economy because I'm Asian and I'm good at math. We needed a primary. We obviously needed a primary. They decided that we didn't get one while also running on the platform of democracies at stake. Those are two issues that do not run side by side very well, and I think that kind of ended up biting them. But, Dave, I think that's some interesting insight for sure. All right. We got to go to break, final break of the show here, but we've got one more segment. I'm open for another call if you guys have it. What's the 773-763-9278? If you want to chime in here, we are going to go to break. We'll be back. You're listening to Driving Home with Patti Vasquez with Ben Cominos here on WCPT.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
Count me among the Americans that want to see change. Now, of course, the change I was looking for would have put Kamala Harris in the White House. Americans voted for change. They just, Trump, I think they got the wrong kind. Still, I'm grateful for elections, even when we lose. They tell us about ourselves, and we can't ignore that and shouldn't.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
And we're back, Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez with Ben Cominos. Sometimes you just can't win in this game. I'm not big on New Year's resolutions. I think they're a ridiculous concept because... if you mess it up and it's January 4th, you're like, well, I guess I got to wait till next year now. And I don't think it creates the right mindset. But I did make one this year. I made it that I wasn't going to let the comments get to me. I was going to do better at just ignoring the comments. I'm ignoring that resolution today. On to the text message here. Bro, there's absolutely no way you could hang in the debate with an intelligent conservative. The people that you say you run off your show and make fun of that, all this other stuff. Those are dumb rednecks to repeat what they see on Fox. No way you can handle a conversation with an intelligent conservative. Let's examine that claim, shall we? The first time we ever tried about a trickle-down economics was in the 1920s. The Roaring 20s. I'm pretty sure they call that the party that never ended. Oh, wait, the Great Depression happened. Fast forward after 40 years of having the tax rate be between 70 and 91%, building the strongest middle class in human history. Not American history. Human history was when the tax rate was between 70 and 91%. It wasn't until St. Reagan showed up and undid those tax rates that we began to see the middle class begin to shrink. Here's another kicker. Stock buybacks in 1978 accounted for 2% of all profits generated. In 2023, they accounted for 70% of profits generated. People prior to Reagan did not need to worry about this because they were borderline illegal. Government also stayed out of the affairs of unions. There was no crushing unions from the government perspective until the 80s, allowing for safer workplaces, better wages, and affordable products. State funds were provided to keep college affordable instead of using federal funds, resulting in the price increases for a number of different colleges, ultimately resulting in this runaway college cost situation that we find ourselves in today. We can continue going down this path if you want, but I have a pretty concrete and pretty well thought out idea of what led to a very strong middle class and what ultimately decimated it. And I am more than happy to engage in a meaningful way about what that actually looks like. But I would much rather involve the callers and the texters than just talk to you guys, although I absolutely have the capacity to do so. Before I get into anything any further, talk about a pivot. We want you to see Stephanie Miller's Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour from the Warner Theater in Washington, D.C., live on pay-per-view. From the comfort of your own home this weekend, join Stephanie Miller along with guest rep Jamie Raskin, George Conway, Olivia Troy, JoJo from Jers, and Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, along with regulars Hal Sparks, John Fugelsong, and Frangela on Saturday night. We need comedy and resistance more than ever for these next 4 years. And if you want to watch Stephanie Miller from home, these are live stream links, not tickets to the show. WCPT can help you out. To purchase pay-per-view access, go to Sexy aniliberal.com and click the Save the World Comedy Tour banner. We have a contest running right now. What caller are we normally take in this kind of situation? Third caller calling in right now will win access to that code there. Lady B is going to be taking calls. And Lady B, if you don't mind, while you're doing that, if you can just throw Frank from Mount Prospect on the show here. Frank, what's happening, man? How are you?
Hey, what's up, Ben? I've been better, dude. I'll tell you that. And I'm not looking forward to the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Almost everybody I've talked to is afraid. What I'll say, Ben, I'll keep it short and sweet. You were talking about a third party. We came up with it, me and a buddy. We think it should be the monkey in the middle party. That we should be more progressive than what the Democrats are being right now, and less conservative of what the conservatives are being right now. I think it could get some traction. Okay.
Sure.
We are just the Democratic. What do I want to say? The voice is just not as strong as the Republicans. They can lie and they can do whatever they want, and unbelievably, that's what 49% of the American people want. And they're going to believe it, and they're going all in on them. And the precedent that's going to be set in the next 4 years, I've never seen. I'm 57 years old. Every time there's been an election, it's been, okay, I'm just going to get on with my life. People are freaking afraid right now. Afraid.
Yeah.
And it's never been like that in this country. And I had I drive Uber, and I had a Palestinian woman in my car that said Trump is the answer. And it almost changed my life. I was like, I can talk no more. I cannot change anybody's mind. There's nothing else I can do, because their garbage, their narrative has worked.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I'll take you even a step further, Frank. It's not even that it worked, it's that it's ingrained. There's people in my family, that whole rant I did about the death of the middle class and tax rates and all that, obviously it's not the first time I engaged in that kind of discourse. I will tell people, you were alive at a time. If they're 65 or older, you built your life at a time when the tax rate was between 70 and 91%. And they're like, no, I didn't. And they will tell you that they are pro trickle down, even though they absolutely benefited. And here's the real kicker, man. Even Democrats say that just say I'm looking for handouts, when in reality, all I'm ever talking about are the systems that were in place prior to Reagan. But after 45 years, and I'll be real, most people don't have a very good memory. After 45 years of a certain way of life, they cannot fathom that life used to work a different way and fundamentally was better economically. We obviously were asked backwards when it came to gay rights, women's rights, all the different minorities, all those situations. That was still terrible. But we had a better idea of how to do a middle class. And instead of trying to go back towards that, Republicans run on trickle down. And to kind of cement what you said, even Kamala Harris, when she was running, her economic plan was Reaganomics. Her plan was to move the corporate tax rate back to 28%. Reagan brought it from 70 down to 28%. So if the left-leaning candidate is running on Reaganomics, this country has been irrevocably dragged to the right. And we got to wake up to that. That's where so much of the disenfranchisement's coming from.
I totally agree with you. And it's now it's the Republicans run the country with fear. Everything is about fear. You know, you got to hate your neighbor. You've got to hate people from other countries. We're running out of people to hate. Yeah. In my opinion, that stuff that happened January 1st in
New Orleans. Yeah.
Boy, they've gotten it bad. They're trying to run us up into something. I think we got to go to Iran very soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, there's powers that be that have to create a narrative for us to hate again, so we can go and invade other countries. And that's what I see. And all my kids are military age, and they're not going, dude.
Yeah.
They're not going.
No, hey. Yeah, I don't blame them either. There's a lot of eye-opening happening. I think they're trying to gin us up to be angry against Chinese people. And I don't know if you've been following this TikTok Red Book stuff. It's going to be a lot harder to get the average American to hate a Chinese person in the very near future here, which I'm very excited about, if I'm being honest. But, hey, I appreciate the call, Frank, and the insight.
Oh, all right. Thank you, man. You have a great night. I'm a fan, brother.
Yeah, right on, man. You take it easy. I think there's a lot of great points there that he was bringing up. And you're listening to a guy, I was the best man at a Chinese guy's wedding. First wedding I was ever at, or first friend I ever made was a Chinese kid back in kindergarten. And it's infuriating to hear these conversations back and forth going on. Sorry there, I just had something in my head there. It's infuriating to hear these conversations surrounding Chinese people and the fact that they are our enemies and we need to hate them. It was infuriating for me to hear this, and I'm hopeful that that's no longer the case. But, if you read the text line, apparently I'm just furthering white supremacy or whatever. But nevertheless, I do appreciate the conversation. I think it's good information. I think it's good to have these kind of talks. Look, you guys can't get rid of me. I'm going to be back tomorrow, and we're going to do this again. We're going to be here with Patti Vasquez, and we're probably going to have a lot of the same conversations. I'm very big on the idea of the Democrats becoming a party of actual working-class people. That means not taking donations from 81 different billionaires. It means not suggesting Reaganomics as the economic plan going forward. The list goes on and on. They need to open their eyes. Is race a component of this? Sure. I'm here to tell you right now, if that's the only message, if that is the only message you take out of what happened in 2024, get ready for President Vance. I don't want it. I'm telling you right now, I don't want it. I'm here working with you guys to find a way to not do it. We got to stop getting mad at people who don't instinctively agree with us. 100%. That can't be part of the game here. Guys, we're out of time. If you enjoyed this, I'll be doing my show Outside the Box remotely from this station. You can just download the WHBY app and give that a listen, and then I'll be doing Driving It Home as well. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. I'm Ben Cominos. More after this.